All the roads are windy. Hello, Shawna. Hello.
Hi, Natalie.
Well, we have been trying to have this conversation for our audience for a long time, and life happened, and finally we are here. So it's really good you and I have been talking not on a podcast this whole time, but it's really good to be here with you and with our invisible audience who will be hanging out with us in their ears as we speak, but like in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I know every time we've tried to talk, it's like, what do I want to say? And I haven't known.
Mm-hmm.
Now I feel like there's more clarity and things are coming together. So,
yeah. So I guess, we wanted to share today, like, what's been up? What are we doing on our hiatus? What's life been like? And just kind of check in and say hi to everyone because, we miss you. Yeah. So I guess you want to go first. Like, what have you been doing since we've been on our hiatus?
yes, my life has changed quite drastically. I went from doing school full time and focusing on Earth Speak and doing flowers on the side, freelancing to, and working remotely since goodness, 2015, to barely ever touching my computer. And that's been an interesting transition. I moved into a floral design position at a really awesome place here in town. And then within a month and a half, got promoted to floral manager. So it's like learning two worlds colliding in the sense of like my professional background as in leadership, but then my passion for flowers. But I could not have foreseen then that my passion for flowers would translate into gardening. Gardening was something that always felt very distant and something that like maybe I'd get to do that in this life. Reaching out to somebody close in the floral world here and asking her to be a mentor for floral design. It turns out she's a master gardener, and we just like have the same vision when it comes to how we want to garden, how we tend the earth, and come from different backgrounds. And it was really cool. So then everything in my life has culminated to start to be all about gardening. So I started volunteering in gardening for this local museum called the Ann Norton Sculpture Gardens, and that's been beautiful. And I am responsible for their butterfly garden, which led me to really research and understand butterflies and caterpillars and predatory insects. And I got my master gardener certification, and I am still on break from school just because I felt like I needed clarity in what my next step was with school as well. And I decided to study horticulture during this time. So I bought a bunch of books that were recommended by horticulture colleges and such, and have been teaching myself all I can about tending the earth. And it feels so rich and beautiful, and can talk more about this later. Which is, not strangely, but synergistically translating to clarity with Earthspeak too. So it's interesting flow in life and where you get pulled to and what happens when you just follow what the heart and signs are telling you to do.
For sure. And I love hearing about your adventures in the butterfly garden. You're hanging out with your caterpillar buddies. Yeah. Super cool.
I think it's interesting too how, your background is in soil science. And the last time we saw each other, you were helping me learn soil science. And I was all about project management. And I feel like, our worlds just totally flipped.
Yes.
Because now you're working remotely and you're all into, everything that I used to be, but like in a totally different way. And it's beautiful and awesome to watch that. And now I'm like, wait, how do I open my computer? Like, wait, what time is our meeting?
I'm like, I got this project management system, Shawna. It's really changing my life. All freaking out. Yeah, that's so funny. Uh, yeah, I know. You never know where you're gonna go. But it doesn't really matter if you know or not, as long as you're following what's really safe and aligned and true for you. And then wherever you end up is exactly where you need to be, whether that's working through something really challenging and difficult or experiencing the other side of that on the integration and the adventure and delight and everything that comes with that. Yeah. Well, I've moved to Santa Cruz, California during our hiatus, land of the Ohlone, Popolochom, and Awaswas peoples. And this is my dream life paradise. Like last year, we literally left a paradise beach in Mexico to come home to Santa Cruz in February because we would rather be here. So we cut our vacation short and came back and sat on the beach. We didn't even live in Santa Cruz yet. We came home and I think we like immediately drove to the beach and sat on the beach. Cause like it was in February and you could have beautiful, like even today it's 60 something degrees, sunny out. You can go sit on the beach in a sweatshirt and pants and bare feet. And it's just perfect. Like I love it here so much. And as a reflector in human design, I've always been told that my environment really is important and the people I'm around are really important because I take in all of the energies and I'm influenced by them. And so I feel that. I mean, my whole life I've felt like that. And I'm also Taurus rising, so home is very important too, as I'm sure you understand, Shawna, as a Taurus. But being here, it just feels like home at last. I haven't felt like I've lived in a place that felt like home for over a decade or more, like a long time. Yeah, almost 2 decades, I think. So it's a great relief. I'm about to turn in a few days. I'm turning 39. I feel like my life is just getting started, which is so rad. And I remember like turning 18 and being like, my life is over. I'm so old. And here I am turning 39. I'm like, no, just getting going. Like pretty cool. So yeah, those whole 20 years, there was a lot of integrating, learning, unlearning. I'm feeling pretty rad. So yeah, we go hiking in the redwoods on trails along creeks that are full of huge ferns and mossy trees. And then we go to the beach almost every day and walk on the beach. I have galoshes that I wear so I can stomp around in the water. And just yesterday we were at the beach, at one beach here at low tide, and I saw a starfish and all these sea anemones, and it's just magical. But also I kind of want to say this place is terrible. Stay away. I can't help but talk about how amazing it is. But people probably saw on the news all of the storms recently that devastated Santa Cruz. That was like right near my town. All the neighborhoods around me were on evacuation notice, except for mine. Mine's just a little higher up, I guess, which we're really fortunate there. We didn't plan it that way, but that's awesome. So yeah, the storms really messed up. I mean, like whole entire chunks of road are gone. Like the sea just came and I guess the bay just came and ate them away, eroded them away, and huge landslides and trees falling on the highways and sinkholes in the highways. So it was pretty intense, but still, even despite that, and despite the fires and the smoke, and despite the drought, which now we're no longer, like now our reservoir's full from all the storms at least, I still love it here. There's just something about it. So I could just probably talk for hours about how much I love this. And I've probably like bored everyone in my life to this point about how stoked I am. And I'm back to volunteering with rescue bunnies because the shelter is like half a block away from me. And I love the bunnies so much. I'm back with them. Yeah, life's good. Oh yeah. And for work, I guess I've been working this whole past year, at the end of 2021, we talked about, I shared very candidly about my money trauma. And early 2022, I was really fortunate to have a really big breakthrough and integration around that. And, up until that point, my body and my nervous system literally felt like if I were to earn any sort of significant amount of money, like enough to even live on, anything more than a few scraps of money, then I would literally die. Like if I was forced to come face to face with that, my body would shut down, like beyond freeze mode, like shut down, dissociation, like exhausted, blurred, terrified. It was a really hard challenge to have in life, as you can imagine, because we got to earn money. And I had a really big breakthrough with that. And within where I finally felt, I call it a critical mass of safety. I finally felt safe enough to get paid. And within a week or 10 days, I don't remember exactly, but it was like really fast. I had somehow like had all these one-to-one clients doing marketing consulting work, helping people convey the value of their offers and feel more confident putting themselves out there, and how to talk about these intangible things that they do. Because all these people like knew they could help people, but they didn't know how to talk about it. And it's pretty cool because now, a year later, I've been doing this kind of underground for a year, and like my website, I don't think I even had a website. And like my website still right now is just like, it's not garbage, but it's like close. It's just like, it's not like professional. I mean, parts of it I think are pretty cool, but the rest of it I'm like, nah, I don't even know. It's kind of like my scattered brain on the internet. So I love that this whole year I was able to finally make a living doing this work that I never expected to be doing, but that I was perfectly positioned to do. And I didn't even have to like have any complicated systems or website or anything out there. Like I just did this through my relationships and my network connections and my confidence in that inner safety that I have. So a year later, here I am about to put out a group program helping people do this, because my one-to-one offer is no small investment. Very worth it though. But it's no small investment. So I have put together a group offer so that people who maybe don't need my one-to-one or aren't ready for that they can still get the benefit of learning how to talk about the value of what they do and feel confident putting themselves out there. And I'm combining that know-how, that like marketing and messaging know-how, with all of the training I've been doing, because now I've finished my first year of somatic experiencing training to be certified in that trauma healing modality, which I love. It's contributed hugely to my own healing. And I'm incorporating that to help people also find inner safety through those ways that they get caught up in, the emotional obstacles that hold them back, like that perfectionism. They show up like dissociation, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, staying small, etc. And so, like for me, I had a very extreme example of that. But, a lot of us, even still, I still feel these things, but I know how to work through them and not let them hold me back now. And actually, that fear actually turns to excitement when I use my modalities for finding that safety. So that's where I'm at, and I'm loving life. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's my check-in.
On the other side of the spectrum, I think what's really cool for me to see is how happy you are doing the work that you're doing. I think that's key. And I feel the same. I feel happy, which I think is translated into contentment and like learning what content is. And I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see where it goes.
I love that though, because I remember a couple years ago, you said that you realized you didn't necessarily want to be happy. You wanted to be content. Like, not like you were going to forego happiness, but you realized that like contentment was different than happiness. And you had been really kind of, I don't know, exploring the difference. Like, what is happiness versus contentment? And I love hearing now that it's settled in you. Like you're both happy and content. It's that they've come together and there's this embodiment of them. I don't know. Do you remember that?
I do. Because I tell people sometimes that I feel as though happiness is a marketing tactic.
Mm.
And and people get very confused. Sometimes they get upset by that. But that was like, that's also, I feel like cannabis teaches, like, it asked me one really big thing. And last year, it really was, what does contentment mean for me? Because I do struggle with major depressive disorder. And part of that major depressive disorder, I would say that I'm high functioning most of the time, mostly when I'm medicated, which I am. I had to accept that I just need to be medicated. It's what's best and right and true for me in my life and the stability of my sanity. But I was asked through cannabis to kind of evaluate why I was feeling depressed at that particular moment in time. And I couldn't understand why. I lived in Asheville. I lived in like a beautiful part of the city, and everything around me should have indicated that I had every reason to be happy. But I couldn't feel that like joy, like when your heart swells and you feel it in your body sometimes. And I was chasing that, perhaps in that moment, not realizing the difference between joy and happiness. Also, I felt like I should always be in this like constant state of, I'm excited, I'm happy, everything in life is grand. But I was also newly married and going through some tough challenges in life, like dealing with my new husband being recently diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder, we literally went from getting married, moving to Asheville, him starting a new medical program, and me working remotely all the time, working 2 jobs. And I felt grateful for that work because it's not necessarily anything I didn't want to be doing. It was just like, I'm not getting into nature. I have this whole backyard to garden. Why am I not gardening? And there's this like weird relationship between depression and all these different things. But anyways, to answer your question, I know that was long, but I didn't think it would be possible for me to be happy. I thought I was broken. Like, I felt that. And so that, I must have been 3 years it took for me to work through that and to understand that contentment and the beauty of contentment is just being. And what I've learned how to find joy through the contentment is following those signs and not always doing what you think you should be doing, what society says you should be doing, or what you see around you, but doing what feels right for you. And this was a huge process in knowing myself and understanding myself, because in that moment, I didn't even know what felt right for me. I was just grinding, making money in the best way that I knew how, without asking, is this what I really want to be doing? Like, I felt as though I should feel accomplished, but I wasn't feeling that sense of accomplishment. And so I would say now, perhaps, I'm not making as much money, but that doesn't even bother me anymore. Like, I feel content. And I still have, lessons and things to learn. And I think life is always evolving, and the path that I'm taking is ever evolving. And sometimes I might be working towards one thing and I get diverted towards another, but I'm also trusting that process of not feeling like I have to stick to this rigid timeline, because there's lessons. And I actually remember one time this medium, she's the fantastic medium. I met with her twice, and for some reason, I'm blanking on her name, but she had told me, I had asked essentially, like, am I always going to feel like this? Am I always going to feel like I'm struggling and can never get caught up, and as though like I just can't feel happy? And she was like, when is it, like, I asked, when is it going to end? And she was like, well, you're not always going to struggle financially, and you're not always going to feel like this. Where you're meant to be going, you're already going, but like, you're going to get deviated, but you're always going to come back to what you're meant to do. And I was like, okay. And I know that's kind of open-ended, but since her reading, I see that pattern, but I see the lessons and the value of deviating and coming back. So now this lesson, I guess, that has come from being able to feel content, is a different aspect, I think, of all of this, is imposter syndrome, which was something I wanted to comment because you had shared a little bit about, somatics. And I've always been interested in somatics, not in the depth that you were. I thought maybe that was a route I wanted to take, but just to realize I have a big problem with feeling imposter syndrome and never feeling enough. And so that was now that I feel like contentment has been learned, I'm always going to have to learn that. My next lesson in life and what I'm feeling into now is imposter syndrome. And why do I feel that? When I feel it, where do I feel it? And just really diving into it. And I would say that the biggest ways my life has transformed from integrating contentment is actually feeling joy in my marriage. I didn't know that was possible, but I also in the time didn't realize I was the one holding myself back from that, and of course I've had to ask, the marriages work. So it's not just me who had to do work, my husband had to do work too, but that's a huge, I feel, gift that came from that also, because I think a part of maybe when I first got married was having one foot in, one foot out the door, because I was always kind of romanticizing who I thought my husband was and not really being content with who he is and being there for him in the day-to-day and really learning what he needs to also feel content.
I love that. There's so many things in there that I'm like, oh, I want to get into it. It's reflecting on that and the kind of just like working. I'm thinking about us in Earthspeak and how interesting it is that even though Earthspeak, it was always my soul work, and it was always a thrill and felt valuable and fulfilling to me. But I struggled with deep trauma of how to get paid without, feeling like I was going to die. But yet, even though it was our soul work, and I don't know if you felt that way too, if it felt like, I imagine it was just from our conversations, but I don't want to put that on you. So I don't know, how did you feel like creating Earthspeak and growing it and just being in it was your part of your soul work?
Oh, 100%. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt it's crazy that you ever even reached out to me to begin with, but I felt honored to be working with you and building this thing. And I felt even more honored when it became something that we both felt like we needed in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
To working through so many things, including me coming from a very patriarchal work background to how do we do this differently? And how do we do it in a way where we're always keeping our members in mind? And how can this be sustainable and make the most impact in creating this world that we want to see, but that our members are asking to see too? And really diving into co-creation, I felt like, it was always meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was always meant to be, and it still feels that way. But I think maybe one of the keys that I learned in business, but also with Earthspeak, is creating something that's true for you, because there was no roadmap for what we were creating.
No, we literally co-created this with me, you, Spirit, and then our community. And we were literally channeling from Spirit, what wants to come through? What's the energy of this? What's the format? And then we put in our own thing. We made, we had tangible background and experience in marketing and systems and stuff, but this was not this was not a membership at a box.
Right. Yeah. And we didn't want it to feel like that. And we didn't want it to
Right.
feel inauthentic.
Right.
There was no, I mean, we had to completely Frankenstein our platform because there was nothing for it.
And then fix it when the things didn't work right. And then like the back end is so nuts.
Yeah. But even like not sleeping, and y'all don't do this, but you know, I also learned work-life balance, but even the times where I didn't sleep for 16 hours because I'm trying to fix something and like help us launch and like all these things, I still was happy doing it because I knew that it was for something so much greater.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the process of getting to where we are today is listening to what felt right for us and just trusting that, you know, a solution was going to come. And even though we did come to our hiatus, like even that is meant to be, because Earthspeak is asking to be something so much greater than what it is. And I think right now, even so much greater than we can truly imagine. And that's what's fun and thrilling of right now and where we are, is because I know what you're working on, what I'm working on, what all of our members are working on in our individual lives through this hiatus is only going to come back and make this stronger and help each other feel more connected to, you know, the earth and themselves and spirit and nature and the beauty. It always comes back to that, right?
Right.
Nature.
Right. And just that beauty of connection and reweaving that connection that has been severed by the machine, you know, over the millennia. Yeah.
And I think like finding that beauty in nature, though, it does lead to liberation, and whatever that means.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Well, yeah. And I think we'll get into that and something, you know, thinking about like the happiness versus joy versus contentment and just following that path. Just kind of reflecting on like where we've been and where we are. And, you know, when you said like seeing me be happy in my work, it was interesting because it is different. It's like the contentment and the balance, integrated work versus when we, you know, a few years ago, when we started Earthspeak, we were happy in our work, but we were also so enmeshed in the kind of, I don't know. I mean, we weren't doing anything bad or wrong, but we weren't who we are today. We didn't learn what we learned today. And we were doing the best we could with like the knowledge that we had and with our own nervous systems and our own trauma responses. And like, you know, your trauma responses to flee, which also includes like, working, like that's a flight from life, is like working. And like, you know, my trauma response is shut down. And so we had we built this whole beautiful community and successful business in its own right based on our trauma responses. But then the very act of what we built by following our intuition, by cultivating connection with ourselves and each other and nature and spirit and the community, it brought to us the support and teachings and experiences we needed to unlearn those trauma responses and to shed those things that kept us repeating the old domineering ways that, you know, even though we were doing them in the name of community and in the name of what we were creating. And like, to some extent, we probably always will have some shreds of those because this is the system we live in. But doing the work, even though we didn't do it perfectly, quote, perfectly, if there even is a perfect, that's another tool of the fucking patriarchy, right? But doing it, quote, imperfectly brought us the experiences that we needed to be where we are today. Like doing Earthspeak was a healing modality in itself for me and you, and for so many who joined. But like the act of going through it, even though it brought up so much, and towards the, you know, before our hiatus, I was facing really intense stuff and you were facing really intense stuff. And we were like, what's going to happen? I don't know. Like, did we fail? I don't know. Like, you know, like it was really intense. And even that was part of this healing journey that has like decomposed and now is sprouting the new seeds of our lives that are so much more rooted in healthy relationships, healthy nervous systems, still following our intuition, following, what calls to us, following our calling and embodying that. And it just looks different. And it's so cool. You're talking about, it doesn't have to be this linear path. And I love how we've always embodied that in Earthspeak of it doesn't have to be a linear path. And here we are giving Earthspeak this season of winter, of what, its own winter to decompose and settle and to just allow space for whatever it is that wants to emerge to come through, which has been, will have been birthed through all of the coming together of me and you and all of the hundreds of people thousands of people who have touched our community and the spirits that we all are connected with and co-creating with. Like, it's so magical to look at it, even though from the outside, someone could label it as like failure or something. It's not. It's like, no, we did, by following that shred or wisp of intuition and connection and vision and co-creation, that became, opened up that portal and that space for us to become, for that thing itself to bring us exactly what we needed to become more of who we truly are, which is what our whole freaking thing was in the first place. Is like, that was our intention. It's like, be more of who you truly are, hang out with people who truly get you, be free and liberated. So yeah, talk more about liberation too, if you will.
Well, what was coming to mind when you were just speaking was how we used to refer to things as a spiral, but then that didn't feel right. And so it's the web we weave, right? Like, web's not a perfect spiral. There's all these zigzags and stuff, but like, you can always go back to the center if you need to.
And there's all kinds of webs too. Yeah.
Right. So part of that is, I was just thinking too about our members. Like, we are where we are because it worked. Like,
I know, right? It worked.
We came together with a beautiful community to work through things in our lives and lessons. And, so many people got married or divorced or had babies and like started new jobs. We went through quarantine,
or loved ones died, grieved.
So many different webs that were being weaved. And the beautiful thing of it all is that what we needed was also what other people needed too, which was space to integrate. Because doing the work, you will and you do evolve. So who we were when we began is not who we were now. And that is also the case for, I feel safe to say, majority, if not all, of our members. And when we announced our hiatus, so many who were coming to the live calls were like, oh, thank God, I really needed a break, I need to sit on this for a moment. Let me process. And we're like, us too. So, yeah. And every month when we still connect, it's like, we're still integrating, we're still learning, but we're all so much more, like, getting so much more clear on where we're going and what we're doing, and trusting the here and now. But I think liberation is trusting. Liberation is knowing that we're never going to be perfect. And listening to yourself when you ask those questions, is this right and true for me? And then trusting that it's okay to spin the web of what comes from that. And that comes from liberation is not just one state of being. It is ever evolving, and it's not tied to one thing, but choosing what you want to work on. I guess you're spinning that part of your web. So, for me, a few years ago, I had to liberate what happiness meant for me. And what did that look like for my life? And I had to learn that happiness is a state of joy. So Natalie, I say that you seem happy in your work because when you talk about it, you light up. like, I have never seen you before unless you were talking about like plants and bunnies, so I see that joy in your face and that light around you and your essence. And so, my cat just came to say hello. Hello. It's like, what's touching my hands? Yeah. And I also really had a problem with self-worth. And I love my mom, but I hate when she's right sometimes because I don't want to admit it. But she had told me, I didn't want to listen to her, but she was like, you have a really low self-worth. And I didn't understand what she meant. I got very defensive. I was like, no, I'm a confident woman. But I did have low self-worth because I was majorly struggling with my identity as a mixed person and didn't understand. I didn't have that sense of belonging, and I desperately needed it. But I also need to feel a sense of belonging to myself and who I am, and feel confident in ways that I didn't know I needed. So I had to liberate the ways in which society told me I should identify, because my parents, came together and created me with mixed ancestry. So once I integrated that, it was a big awakening of like, okay, wow, this isn't aligned. This isn't aligned. This isn't aligned. And underneath it was like, who am I really? Because I'm no longer this state of like low self-worth, stuck in a box, needing to people please anymore. I'm something that I didn't feel comfortable with. And, now I feel comfortable in who I am. And I feel like I'm the most true version of myself than I've ever been in my life. And so in this liberation, I feel content. I feel like it's safe to feel content, even though now I'm having to liberate imposter syndrome and the ways that shows up for me, which is mostly, I think, at work as a creative. And that's a whole different conversation of imposter syndrome as a creative artist. Yeah. So.
Okay. Can I hop in here?
Yes.
I love how you're saying like you had to liberate the self-worth and liberate imposter. You're now, liberating imposter syndrome. And it's such a, I talk a lot about like unblocking emotional obstacles, but what you're saying here with like liberating imposter syndrome is so, I'm seeing it now in a way where, my whole philosophy is that it's rooted in polyvagal theory, which, don't worry if you're like, poly what? Like, you don't need to know what that means. But if you're a nerd and you want to go look it up, you can go look it up. That's why I share. But I'll speak in just plain words here without any jargon. But basically, our bodies have these survival instincts. We're either in a state of feeling threatened and we have to protect ourselves, or we feel safe and we don't need to be on high alert. We can like just live and be. And feelings like contentment and joy come from that state of safety. Feelings like self-worth come from that state of safety. So something like imposter syndrome or something like low self-worth, they are stemming from somewhere feeling threatened and not safe to, to receive and have your needs met or something. It could be a different flavor for everyone, but just thinking of my own like self-worth issues, it was like not safe to receive, not safe to have my needs met, but I have to take care of everyone else's needs first. Like those are the kind of stories that we're living there. And like imposter syndrome is like, it's not safe to be seen as an expert or an authority, or to, be a guide or helper or be the one leading. It's not safe for some reason, whether or not it's true. If you did a reality check, which is a term from Naomi Love that I love, I'm like, reality check is so great. Because if you're like, okay, am I actually qualified for this? Do other people actually want to hear this from me? Do I actually help people get results? And you're like, yes, yes, yes. Then it's like reality check, but you can still feel imposter syndrome. And that's that survival instinct. That's not something we control with our logical mind. It's something that happens instinctively, like our hearts beating. We don't have to control our hearts. We don't have to be like, now breathe. Like we can we have more control over our breath than we have over our survival instincts, really. But but it just happens automatically. And so with imposter syndrome and with these things, it can feel like you're being held hostage by them, when in fact, they're just trying to protect you. But it is this like gnarly feeling of being stuck or blocked or feeling held hostage. And so this whole approach of seeing them as survival instincts is like, well, if you're feeling threatened and they're trying to protect you, then how do we work with them to actually help your body feel like it's protected, like you're protected and safe? Because once you feel safe, all of those things drop away. We don't need to like push or force or anything. You know, we don't need to like push imposter syndrome out. We don't need to like clear the energy of imposter syndrome. Though that said, I do love working with clairvoyant, you know, energy clearing, and working in that way can actually assist your body's, you know, transforming of this. But, you know, getting into that, it's a whole different branch there. But at its core, it's like, okay, well, how do, you know, I know for me, I felt like I was being held hostage by some invisible part of me that felt like I was going to die if I earned money. And I was like, you're holding me hostage. This sucks. But it was so safe. And what finally unlocked it, and when my life changed so quick, is when I reached that critical mass of safety where that part of me felt like it's safe to earn money. And that came from the final straw was having a conversation in couples therapy with my husband, where I said that I felt like even if I earned money, it wouldn't be mine to do what I wanted with. And he was like, oh, wow, I can see how you feel that way. What do you need in order to feel like you can do what you want with your money? And I was like, I don't know. And I like thought about it. And then he's like, let's make sure you do that. And that just like, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't know. That's kind of sounds like a gnarly saying. I don't even know what it means literally. Of where does that come from? Someone note to self, go to check that out. But it was the final straw. It was the final straw. And that's when my, like, all of that fear energy that was trying to protect me, suddenly I felt safe. And all of that energy now became excitement and confidence. And so like with imposter syndrome, you know, liberating yourself from whatever inner part of you is holding you hostage in the name of self-protection. Like it's this super twisted, you know, miswired survival instinct that's happening. So I love the phrasing of liberating yourself from imposter syndrome, even though it's your own self holding you hostage in the name of trying to be protected, but it's just wrong. It's like, it's so weird down there in the unconscious.
What I love about what you've said is that it's an inherited ideology to think things are right and wrong. And I'm not saying that right and wrong doesn't exist, but we're taught what is right and what's wrong from our parents who inherit their own ideologies, from their parents who inherit their ideologies, and ideologies being like these ideas of what and how things should be, the idea of what makes something perfect. And a quote that came to mind is by one of my favorite authors and somatic practitioners / teacher, Stacey K. Haynes, from, I guess, in a joking way, my Bible, because I refer to it probably every single day. And I love it so much, called The Politics of Trauma, which is really funny. Can you have it too? And I remember when we first discovered this, we were just eating it up. We're like, yes. But the quote is, embodying a new shape requires us to come to terms with the understanding that the practices that got us here may not be the ones that will take us forward. It requires us to consider, what are the practices that will not only allow us to celebrate this new shape, but to embody it? And to do that, you know, Stacey talks about a lot of different sites and landscapes of change, but it requires us, in order to find belonging, to access and look underneath. So we have to remove the inherited ideologies that aren't productive, the ones that hold us back.
And by productive, you don't mean productive like producing for consumerism profit. You mean, what do you mean by productive?
So by productive, I mean what is going to help us become more connected as humanity, but also with the earth.
And I have the sense of like aliveness.
Exactly. And in order to do, like to move through that, we have to feel, because in order to kind of discern something, we have to be able to feel into what's right and what's wrong for us. So we need to learn how to feel the sensations in our body. What is your gut trying to say? What feels safe versus not safe? And being able to feel more of yourself often requires a purposeful path of healing. And this is from Stacy's teaching too. And then you have to learn and study. We have to learn, find our expanders, like who has done what we do, and in what ways does it trigger you, and why? And then from that, we find our purpose, we find our support systems, and we're able to transform from that state of trauma response into where we're supposed to be going. But that place that we're supposed to be going isn't linear, because it's a web. There's always something in us that we're having to liberate, because we're an evolving being. It's
Right.
like, it makes me think of it makes me think of this caterpillar. It's a butterfly. It's a Florida native butterfly that is endangered. It is so endangered. And I wish I remembered the name, but I think it's kind of like a swallowtail, and it feeds on these sago palms, but it has evolved to look like bird poop in order to survive.
Gives a whole meaning to you look like shit.
Right. And if you're like, cutting something back, you might think that it is, but it's so that the birds don't eat it. So nature has evolved in this way, this like really, I guess, ugly and wrong way to transform into something beautiful and purposeful. Yeah.
And for protection. Look, that's amazing self-protection there.
Yeah. So it's this, blooming state of liberation.
I also just want to point out, just for accuracy's sake, not that you are right or wrong, but that the quote is from Richard Strozzi Heckler, and Stacy interviewed him personally.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Strozzi is her teacher.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think that's, you and I have been really tapping into like, what does Earthspeak asking of us in this next leg of it, our co-creative adventure, and what you're even speaking to. It reminds me of what's really happening when people talk about like quantum leaping or timeline jumping or even manifesting, and all, like, I think New Age stuff puts all these terms on it, and magic, it puts all these terms on it, which, I mean, nothing wrong with that, because it's just trying to model what's happening in our lived experiences and our realities. But, understanding all those things, I feel like what you just said about this quote about embodying a new shape requires us to come to terms with the understanding that the practices that got us here may not be the ones that will take us forward. It requires us to consider, what are the practices that will not only allow us to celebrate this new shape, but embody it? And that's like at the heart and core of what evolution is, what liberation is, what manifestation is, what co-creation is. It's like, that's the journey we go on, from the old shape to the new shape, the old embodiment to the new embodiment, the old practices to the new practices. And that, when you say liberation, I think of like the snake shedding its skin, or even the baby cat. I once watched a tiny, like, millimeters long caterpillar shed its skin in just a second or two and become a bigger caterpillar. And it was like, and it was actually a form of swallowtail in North Carolina that I watched do this. And it was so cool. And just seeing, like, liberation isn't necessarily always that you're leaving something bad. It's just, we grow, we evolve and grow. And, this process is so, we didn't come here to talk about quantum leaping or manifesting or anything, but I think at the heart, all of that really is finding safety. I'm just going to drop this here because I think co-creation is that act of finding safety in embodying that new, whatever it is that's calling to us. And I love this book, The Politics of Trauma, because it brings together so many of the things that are missing from awareness within so many new age systems that are, bypassing, I love that. And okay, I think something really cool here too is, as we move forward, I realized when I was describing to Shawna what my new program is, I was like, we need to do my program for Earth Speak. So my new program is essentially, I'm gonna, I guess I don't even know when this is going out, but I think it'll be going out while the doors are still open. So y'all are welcome to my program. It's called Confident Offer. But what I'm going to help people do, really, we're going to convey the value of your offer and feel confident putting yourself out there. And the way we're going to do that is through working with survival instincts to help find safety. I'll help liberate from that inner imposter syndrome that's holding you hostage in a miscalculated name of safety or protection. But we're also I'm going to have people do some market research, which is really just getting to know their customers, asking them the questions that bring insights about what do they need help with and what are they hoping for and dreaming for. And I've got a really beautiful process for doing this. And I'm also going to have participants assess their own needs, because my belief is that part of really having a confident offer and feeling good putting yourself out there is having a balance of finding that place, like that core of safety that we're coming to, that kind of like Venn diagram overlap of safety that we're coming to here is like, what are the other people's needs that I can help them with? And what are my needs? And where's the overlap of those where I can help other people and I feel good within my own self? I have my own needs met and I know I can deliver on the promises I'm making. And we have a clear container of our relationship. And I'm inviting people into doing business with me in a way that we both feel safe and consent and clear about, consensual and clear about, like, this is at the core of what I'm going to be teaching people. So it's going to be a spiritual journey in itself. Honestly, I just went through it myself. And, but Shawna and I are going to do it for Earth Speak. So we'll be doing some market research. So you'll probably hear us reaching out with some questions so that we can incorporate your needs and your insights and your desires into what we're co-creating here. And we're not just having me and Shawna and Spirit and the Earths, but you all are Earth Speak too. You're such an important part of this. And this conversation, as we start to wake up from our hiatus and, warm up from the winter that we've been in and move towards whatever's coming next, it's going to emerge from the conversations we're going to have with each other. That's not just me and Shawna and Nature and Spirit, but me and Shawna and Nature, Spirit, and you. And so y'all keep an eye out, because you're going to be invited to answer some questions and know that you're part of our co-creative process here for finding what wants to emerge. And I found through doing this process myself, what emerged was the most, Shawna said that she hears me talk about my work and it sounds like I'm talking about my love of plants or bunnies. That's because I really worked with all of the most alive, safe, vibrant, and connected energies of these dynamics within business, within what am I offering and what do people need and what is this exchange we're entering into and how does this become in itself a way that we are uplifting all of humanity in this one little act by so many things. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. So I'm just going to pause there, just say like, yeah, y'all are going to be invited into this and the conversation will continue. So stay tuned. Stay tuned on our email list is probably the best because we've really Instagram just takes way too much work and time right now. So email list is where it's at. And always feel free to hit reply on our emails and reach out to us, share what came up for you or what your questions are or whatever, we love hearing from you. And, Shawna and I have amazing ideas of what we think is going to come next, but it's not going to be complete and it's not going to really be that juicy aliveness without that co-creative input from y'all. So yeah. Anything you want to say about that, Shawna?
What's also magical about this workshop is it's a synthesized version of what took us years to understand and learn, and help us get to where we are today. But while it is a lot of that path of what we were talking about that brings us to liberation. So, it's liberating what's right in your life for you in your business or whatever you want to, take through this process. So it's beautiful. And I can't wait to see what comes up for people as well.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I know I'm excited. It's so fun. It's just so fun. It's so fun. Maybe I'm a nerd. I don't know. I know I'm a nerd. I do know that. But yeah.
You're a nerd, but also your clients have found this monumentally helpful in their practice and business. So I think what makes it fun is that it works.
Right. And like I'm able to help them really hone in on, even if what they're doing feels so intangible, we're like, no, here's the very tangible, compelling aspects of your offer that people have had their best years ever after working with me. And I'm blown away. I'm making my sales page right now. And I'm like, whoa, these case studies and testimonials are kind of nuts. What did I just do? This is amazing. So I'm excited. I'm nervous too. I'm not going to lie. I'm nervous and I still, get flustered and feel like a flubbering idiot sometimes, but that's just part of the journey. It doesn't hold me back. I'm not like always a confident badass bitch. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm terrified, but I know how to move through it. It doesn't hold me back for more than a few hours or a day. That's the beauty. That's the liberation to me, is not getting stuck there, not getting pulled into the undertow and drowning.
Right. And I just want to say, like, the work that y'all are doing means something. It matters. And the more, I would say, earth speakers we have doing what lights you up, it's a domino effect from there. So if you all can inspire somebody in your life to do what lights them up, imagine.
I know. Look how many people we've inspired to start podcasts or communities or do workshops or start doing something. Like, it's so freaking cool. I love that. We're really, yeah, exactly. It's like we really are helping amplify, like together we amplify this. So I guess I want to be clear here too. Like, there's two different things we're talking about. I'm running a program that is it's just something I'm running outside of EarthSpeak, where y'all can come learn how to, craft your offers, convey the value of your work, and feel confident putting yourselves out there. You can get more information at natalie.net. But then Shawna and I are going to use what I'm teaching in my program. We're going to go through this process. We're going to take EarthSpeak through the process of my program. So just in case anyone's confused there. So, because we kind of like dove into a few things, but so that, you'll be hearing from us as we go through my process in my program, as we do that for EarthSpeak, to find that overlap of what's calling to us as co-creators and you as co-creators in the space of EarthSpeak. So we'll be doing market research and reaching out and figuring out what is our next evolution of EarthSpeak. What do we want to co-create and put out there? So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, we're still around.
We're still around and we're rocking.
Love you all. We miss you.
I know. Hugs. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share before we say goodbye? I mean, I hope that we get to hang out again and really soon.
No, there's so much to talk about. Yeah.
Always so much.
We should just do this like
every week.
Do this. Yeah.
I know, right? Well, I guess we'll do our market research and we'll consider our own needs. We'll consider our people's needs and we'll find the overlap and make something freaking awesome. So stay tuned, y'all. The magic is emerging.
Oh, I wish everyone a beautiful, beautiful time.
Same. Yeah, same. May be blessed with many rainbows, well-being, resources, healing, joy, contentment, happiness, money, healthy relationships, beauty, fuzzy snugs, whatever it is that lights you up. May you be blessed with that.
Banana slugs.
Banana slugs. Awesome. Well, y'all can find me. I'll be sending stuff about my program to the EarthSpeak email list, but also I'll be sending different stuff to my own email list as well. That's at natalie.net. And I also send out a weekly newsletter, mostly weekly. Sometimes I don't have the capacity for that, which is another part of honoring our bodies, our own process, but, keeping going, even if we get tripped up a little, having chronic illness and all. But you can sign up at natalie.net. Shawna, do you want to invite people anywhere, your Instagram or anything? Or
yeah, if you would like to connect, I'll be in the garden. You can sometimes catch me at Folk Florist on Instagram or at Shawna.Kaysen, depends on your flavor. I like to share the happenings of anything floral related, garden related at Folk Florist, and then anything heavy and controversial or just cat meanderings at Shawna.Kaysen.
Ooh, cat meanderings. Nice. Sweet. Well, thank you all so much. And thank you, Shawna.
Thank you. I love you. See you.
I love you.
All the roads are winding.
Listen to over 200 free EarthSpeak podcast episodes on your favorite podcast app and visit earthspeak.love to learn about our collective community and workshops.